Hello everyone, welcome to this new part of the course. And well, we got all the textures, we worked on them, and besides, in this time between lessons, I've worked with the other textures. As you see, I've done the cactus arm, always following this easily applied look or color. You can spend as much time as you want. Then we have the meat chunk, we've done before, the onion, the cactus body, which we worked in before, the guacamole also, the lemon slice, we saw that too, with wooden piece, which we made using the same technique that we used in other textures, which is the motion blur, the tortilla, the nachos. Well, as you see, it's pretty simple. We painted yellow and placed some lighter dots. The petals, the peppers, the guacamole bowl, the dish, and the spikes. I'll explain later why one of them has a black background, alright? The sombrero, which we saw the process and placed these triangles. This is the sand in the flower pot, which we'll barely see. And finally the flower pot with the facial expression we put there, okay? Well, then I switched to Cinema 4D and I placed the different textures to each element. For example, in the piece of wood, first we had the texture we created at the beginning, which was a flat color. So now we just go here, hit texture, and in this button, we start loading all these textures we've been creating. Okay? We have to do this with all the elements we've been working on. The only elements left are the background, the floor, and the cheese, which we'll do next. Everything else, we have to navigate here and set the texture we created in Photoshop. Alright? Good, so we're back in Photoshop and we're going to work in the background. Alright? In order to do the background, we have this drawing area in which we'll create a sun and some clouds. Let's create a new layer and let's draw a sun. Select the brush tool, select the yellow color, and well, let's make a circular selection in order to create this sun. Okay, more or less like here. And we'll paint this yellow. The next step is creating a new layer in order to create some clouds. For this, I'll remove these, and just as a guide, I'll paint this black background so I can see the white properly. And in this layer here, we'll start painting the clouds. Select the brush tool, and we'll pick a specific brush, okay, the one you like the most. Try different ones and we'll see what they do. Pick the white color, and for example with this one we would have enough. We create a cloud over here, another one to the right, and we'll make another one here around this part. Now we'll try to put some volume in all these, okay? We'll pick a darker color and we'll just do as always. We'll pick colors and blur them using the mixer brush tool. Okay? Like this. Kind of like this. Here, as always, the time you dedicate is up to you. I'm just doing an example. Now, as you see, we have painted the sun and the clouds, and we want to have a transparent layer as our result, because we don't want this white layer to affect, obviously. We don't want this white plane at all. So for this, we just hide the white plane, and we'll save this file as PNG as is. Let's do it. Background. Perfect. Now we have to do is the mask, which will help the alpha so the transparency is seen. For this, we combine the layers we created, both the clouds and the sun. And now double click on this layer and will be completely white. Navigate to the color overlay tab and select the white color. Click OK, and that's it. We can save this as a PNG with transparency. And now we only have to get the emitter map. The emitter light will be a light that the sun will emit. So for this, we'll hit Ctrl-C in order to go back to having both layers separated. And we'll do the following. We activate the black layer, and we'll hide the clouds, and we'll only see this layer. And this is what will save as emitter layer. And we save it. I'll explain later how to place this layer. So now as you see, we have 3 textures, 3 images, the sun with the clouds, the usual, the color layer, the transparency mask layer, and the emitter light layer. All right? Good. In order to create the floor, we have different options too. Another one of the options I used is creating a floor through a radial blur. For this, we can just go to Freepik and download some kind of example. Like, for example, this one. So we download this mandala in Illustrator format and we take it to Photoshop. Okay, something like this. So we select this layer, head to Filter, Blur, Radial Blur. We can click OK, and we see we get this similar shape. The more blurred it is, the better. In this case, I have this alpha. And as you see, this alpha has a slight transparency. So this is what I want to save. Let's save this. Remember, in PNG format as floor. And we have to also save the alpha. So we head to Layer Styles, Color Overlay, and select the white color in order to create the alpha mask. Okay, so we save this. Floor alpha. Okay. Good. Finally, we have the cheese, which, as you may have imagined, here you'll understand why we'll make it flat in 3D. Because we'll be able to make the most of the advantages of generating an alpha mask and work this shape in color. We'll create a new layer. Pick a brush like this one, and we'll pick a yellower color. Different than this one. Now here I could generate the shape. It's important for us not to go over the area of the effect, okay? So we could do this using geometry, but we'd have to use a lot more polygons since all these curves need cuts. So doing it like this, you see an alternate way to doing this in volume. So we make it flat, and through an alpha texture, we generate all the shapes and the curves. Okay, and now, as you'll see, all this zone will be transparent. I mean, I'm going to finish this now. We place, for example, another new layer. We put some green dots, for example, as it was some kind of spice. And now we'll put some other dots in a different color. And now, finally, we'll take the yellow layer and we'll make the borders a bit darker so it has more depth. We're going to paint the central part a bit lighter. And as always, we blur all this. Like this. Now we combine all these. So combine layers. And now we'll simply save this. Remember, we can set a background color. This will be the color layer. Save as cheese. Okay. And now finally, remember to double click this and paint this white in order to generate the mask that will make the transparency visible. All this part will be transparent. Doing all these using geometry would have been more complex and we would have added so many polygons. That's why we do the cheese this way. All right? Save this. We have all of these ready now. So we're going to go back to the background now because I forgot to create some mountains, which I think would look very interesting. We created a new layer and we pick a color for these mountains, like this one, for example. And we're just going to create some light mountains at the bottom so the image looks better. So we grab a brush. Then we paint using the procedure I explained for the one you want. We paint these mountains generating lights and shadows. And finally, we'll do the same we did before, and we'll build the alpha layer. So remember to paint all these white and save it as PNG so it works as a mask. Finally, we don't have to redo the emitter map because the mountains logically won't emit light. Good, so the last step before uploading this model in the web is working on a high finish for the cactus. For this, we'll do as follows. We're going to select all the components of the cactus. Okay, all the spikes, all the rocks, all the components. From here till here. Right click and connect object and delete. All right? So we'll have all the cactus in the same object. We'll use the bend deformer, the one we worked with before, and we'll place it so it makes a curve effect towards the right and make the cactus funnier. So we'll set the bend in the right position. Remember, we can make it wider, bigger. So we place it like this. And whenever we have it according to how we want it, we place it inside the cactus. And now, as you know, if we tweak the strength parameters, we can deform the cactus towards one direction. Besides, we can set the deviation better. Like this. All right? So this way, it can look better. Now we can right-click it, current state to object, delete the old one, and we keep the already modified cactus. Okay, we remove this. All right, and here we have it. I'm going to rotate it a bit. Good. We're going to leave these like this. We'll save these in FBX format, and we'll leave both the background, the floor, and the cheese without the textures. So head to File, Export, FBX, name it, and hit Save. Okay? Here we make sure these two boxes are checked and hit OK. And finally, we export the document in FBX. We'll leave this part of the course here, and in the next and final lesson, we'll learn how to upload this model to Sketchfab and apply the textures and procedures to give the image a high finish. So, see you in a bit.